Hi, it's David again, and I wanted to dedicate this particular video to atheism. The feedback that I'm getting from the YouTube indicates that 85% of my viewing audience, if you want to call it that, is men, and the other portion is women, females. And the biggest group is men 55 to my age, 65. There's spread between other younger people. But let me focus on atheism, because from inception of my birth, I've obviously been in a Christian family my whole life. Starting at age 7, I was in the Mormon church until I was, whatever, 55 or something, and then I resigned from the Mormon church. Once I started to step out of the box and really explore and investigate in an objective way. Now certainly the opinions of people and testimonies of people and verbal persuasion and certain books can have an influence on how we decide to live our lives and what our value systems are. My search took me a long time to get out of the Mormon church. I am a very faithful person. I don't like the word betrayal. I like to be there in good times and in bad times, whether life is good or it's bad. I believe in being as stable to your principles as humanly possible, almost fanatical. So it took me a long time to get out of the Mormon church, and in fact I actually left and then rejoined. That's how unsure I was in those days. I had to take the lessons all over again and go to the interviews and dress in my white clothes and get baptized a second time. And after I got baptized a second time, I didn't feel any better about Mormonism than I did when I left the first time. So I made the decision then at that particular time to leave for good, which I did. So I didn't take it lightly, I didn't take it quickly, and I didn't take it with without a lot of evidence. I had been taught my whole life as a Mormon to go on my feelings. If I felt it was right to do, just do it. Mormons are God's chosen people, so God would never give you that Holy Ghost feeling of feeling right about something and then having it be wrong. Well, that was a poor way to live. That was a very poor way to live based upon your feelings. I had a lot of wives that I had feelings that were the right wife, a lot of cars, a lot of houses, a lot of kids, a lot of things in my life that I did by feeling. And that was pretty much disastrous over a lifetime. Going on your gut or going on your feelings is inferior to going on your brain. So pulling out of that quasi-Christian cult opened my eyes. It gave me a new perspective on life. It gave me a new way of looking at things when people presented ideas to me, or I saw advertisements, or I saw books or TV programs or any kind of stimulus. I saw it with new eyes. I began to feel that and feel today, that I was cheated out of my childhood. I feel that I was cheated mostly out of my life, and that my money was taken and I was cheated, and that my association with that organization was disastrous. Now what do? Your youth is gone, your jobs, your education is 20 years old, no one wants that. So I developed a lot of tools of thinking, cognitive, and it's one of the first times in my life that I've really triggered the cognitive side of my brain to dictate to me how I should live. What is the groundwork of good living? And a lot of times I feel some discrimination. Many times people say, well, gee, you know, if you're an atheist, it means you're godless. Well, maybe you are, but what's wrong with that? That doesn't make them godless if they believe in Muhammad, or they believe in Buddha or Jesus. What difference does that make that I don't? Well, to a lot of Christians it makes a difference. They're very hostile to atheists. I'm not sure they should be. We don't preach against Jesus. We just don't believe in him. Is that a crime or is that a sin? In their minds it is. And they feel a sacred, I guess, obligation to try to reconvert us or convert us to believing that Jesus is the Savior of the world, and that without him we're all going to burn in hell, and all the other doctrines that, you know, the 71 virgins and Muslims and walking to Mecca. I mean, all these religions have their strangeness and their silliness, and that's okay. If that floats people's boats and they enjoy that and they want to be part of that, who am I to say, gee, you know, come with me, be an atheist? We don't have an organization. We don't knock on people's doors and hand them pamphlets to become an atheist. I think that's some of the joys of atheism, that we don't really have to try to convert anybody and try to make other people believe the way we do. We're not vested in that. And that's very upsetting to Christians and Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons and Catholics and Southern Baptists, and it goes on and on. I just want to say that coming from Mormonism was the tools that gave me the will and the way to come to a logical and comfortable decision on atheism. When I look into Mormonism and I compare it to Christianity, I was astounded. I was astounded. I felt that I was so stupid and so embarrassed that I believed that angel came down and gave a whole bunch of plates to Joseph, but we don't have those plates. The angel took them up into heaven. I thought, gee, that's okay. That's to test our faith. And, well, it wasn't to test our faith. It was a fraud. And Joseph Smith marrying 14-year-old girls, I thought, gee, he's a prophet. He should do what God tells him to do. And, you know, he said an angel chased him around with a flaming sword and told him if he didn't do that, he was going to kill him. So, you know, if you want to believe that stuff, that's fine. I don't. I don't. And when I started looking at the silliness of the Mormon Church, I have a pretty good knowledge of Christianity, the Old Testament, the New Testament. And I'm not going to go into every story in the Bible, but a few that I remember, Daniel in the lion's den. You know, you have a bunch of hungry lions and you throw Daniel in there and they don't eat him. And Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego wouldn't pray the way that the government wanted them to, so they threw him in an oven. The oven was so hot that it killed the two guys that opened the doors, but those guys didn't get burned. And, you know, Jesus walking on water. Well, I've never seen it before or since. I've never seen a man with a human body walk on water. And it started to look a little bit like some of the plagiarisms and some of the silliness of the Mormon Church. When I think of the virgin birth, now there's a good one. And of course, I'm a minority on this, but I don't care. I don't think a girl can give birth to a baby being a virgin. Somebody had to put a penis in there and someone had to squirt some sperm in there. I don't care if it's Jesus. I don't care if it's Homie the Clown. That's the way life passes here on this earth. And if people want to believe that, you know, Mary was impregnated by the Holy Ghost, you know, believe it. I don't. I just don't. It's silly stuff to me. And the three wise men, and, you know, there's a lot of stories. They're fun stories to read and to have Christmas around in your family. But as far as solid evidence, it's just not there. Now, most of the New Testament was written by the apostles, but not really. Many of the apostles had secretaries, and the apostles were in their 80s. Now, back 2011 years ago, when you were 80 years old, that was pretty old. And you didn't have medications, and you didn't have a doctor, and you may not have even had your mind. So some of those secretaries wrote some of that New Testament. And so now you're talking about their experience with Jesus 50, 60 years, well, 50 years after the incident. Well, I can't remember too much 50 years ago. I remember a few things, but not a lot of details. So that New Testament is pretty much written. Paul wrote letters to the different churches that were on the earth at that time. He didn't expect that to be scriptures. He just was writing a letter. Well, I guess the Catholic Church brought that into Scripture. And then there's many books that never even got into Scripture. The book of Timothy, and I don't know, I've read two, there's a Helen or something. It's a female book that didn't get into the Bible, and I think it was the Nicene Council of the Catholic Church that took all the books, put them on the table, and said, throw these away. These are the new King James Version of the Bible, and that's what Christians worship and believe are their scriptures today. Well, the other thing, with Jesus dying on the cross, many times Christians have a tendency to believe that was a unique experience. Well, Judea, or the Israelites, the Jews, were a conquered people. They were occupied by the Roman army, and the Roman law was predominant in that group, and the Jews couldn't do anything about that. And crucifixion was a terrible, certainly, capital punishment, but it wasn't unique to Jesus. There were thousands or hundreds of thousands of people that were crucified. When you rode into Galilee and some of the towns, there were crosses of men dying for 30 miles, walking along, going into town, showing the people if they screw around with the Roman government, they're going to be on the side of the road hanging on a cross. So if he died on a cross, which, again, I don't know. You do. If you're a Christian, you know by the feelings that you have. But he was not alone. And we know he was between two thieves when he died, and I assume they died too. So there were thousands and thousands of people. Now he crossed the governmental lines. Christians want to believe that Christ was mistreated. And same way with Joseph Smith, that they're both martyrs. Well, you know, when you marry 14-year-old girls and you print your own money and you come up against the government several times, there's a good chance you're going to have a trial. And Jesus was saying things and doing things that didn't really support the Roman occupation. And many of the leaders of the Roman occupation there believed that Jesus was a threat. If Jesus had just calmed down and been cool, he'd probably still be on the earth. But he didn't. And when he did the Sermon on the Mount, and again, I'm trying to think to myself here, you know, the numbers I get are 10,000. And that may not have been women and children. Now, tell me, how in the hell can one man speak without an amplifying system to 10,000 people? I don't care if you shout. You can't talk to 10,000 people. Try to put 10,000 people knee to knee, and it's going to take up a square foot area that no man can yell over or preach over. Well, that was an amazing feat too, I guess. And then all the people at the picnic there with Jesus at the Sermon on the Mount were hungry. Well, I assume they had to go to the bathroom too, but the scriptures don't say too much about that. So he fed them. He found a basket of 5 or 6 loaves of bread and some fish, and he fed the whole crowd. 10,000 people from 5 bread and 8 fish or something. Now, if you believe that, great. I don't. I don't think it's possible. I don't think it happened. I think it's a severe extortion or an exaggeration of the event. And those are just a few things there that come to my mind. When Jesus was killed, they took his body and put it in the tomb of a rich man and rolled a big rock, I guess, in front of it. And Mary Magdalene was sitting there, I guess, mourning. And suddenly the angel, whatever that is, shows up and says to Mary Magdalene, what are you doing? And she said, you know, someone has basically stolen my master's body. It's gone. And the rock had been rolled aside. And the angel said, well, he has arisen. Well, then I guess Jesus comes after the angel and talks to her and says, you know, who are you looking for? And basically she said, my master. And, you know, the story is a little fuzzy in my head now. But he says, well, I'm your master. Well, she didn't recognize him. Well, how come? You know, was he still wrapped in the mummy clothing that they put entombed bodies in those days in the tomb? I don't know. Now, if I was Jesus and I had been mistreated by a governmental occupation, and I was God, and I have come back to earth, the first man that ever came back from life, I think I would walk into Jerusalem and to the Roman people that are occupying and say, you know, look, I'm back. And I think they would have been scared, and I think he would have been able to do a lot of good as far as his people, the Jewish people. He could be saying, you know, the Roman army, get out of here and let my people rule themselves, and prove to the whole world that he was resurrected. That seems reasonable to me. That's what I would have done. Well, this Jesus didn't. You know, I guess he wanders around. There's the Urantia book and the King James version give different events and different times, but he ended up with the apostles. Now, the apostles weren't all that brave. We already know that Peter was hiding when Jesus got picked up, and someone said, aren't you one of his master's, the master's followers? And he goes, oh no, I never saw the man, I don't know. I know nothing. You know, he's a real a sharp tool in the shed for Jesus, if the story is true. Well, when Jesus shows up after the resurrection, where does he go? He goes to the house where all of them are hiding. You know, this is kind of like a Christmas story. You know, it sounds good, but is it true? I don't think so. So the building they were in had a door and it had windows. And rather than Jesus knocking on the door or knocking on the windows and going, hey guys, I'm here, I'm alive again, well, he comes through the wall. Now, why? Why does Jesus come through the wall? I mean, that's a little grandiose, isn't it? I mean, if he's really resurrected and, you know, he pounds on the door and says, hey guys, let me in, they open the door, that makes some sense. But just having to go through the wall is silly. It's just silly. It's show-off kind of stuff. Well, then they say that Thomas goes, hey, you know, I don't think you're the real Jesus. Probably the only sane one in the group. And Jesus puts out his hands and, you know, shows him that he has these crucifixion marks on him. Well, most people think that when you're resurrected, you're perfect. Well, why is he still carrying holes in his side and holes in his hands and feet? I don't know. And neither do you. So, when you go to the wedding where he made the, you know, they ran out of wine and he turned water into wine, you know, who wouldn't want this guy in their catering company? It just doesn't make sense. And you can try all you want and make excuses, and that's what I did for the Mormon church. Well, maybe this, God's ways are not our ways. Oh, we don't know why God does. It's testing our faith. Well, you know what? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. So I have moved to a station in life now at an older age, 64. I could die any minute. I've had quad bypass surgery. Die on camera here. But the point is that I learned that the Mormon church tricked me. And then I step back and look at Christianity and Buddha and Muslim and all the other philosophies and religions. And I said to myself, there's such silliness there that it looks like the Mormon church kind of in a blender. So I backed away and said, well, if I don't believe in a God, and an afterlife is a question in my mind, what do I believe in? How is that going to change me as a human being? And that takes some time, you know, if you're going to move towards atheism, or you want to know, about atheists, it takes time to walk that road. You just don't wake up one morning and go, oh, I don't believe in Jesus. Man, you've been praying to Jesus for 50 years, you know, and you have little prayers at the table thanking him for food that you work for, you bought, but you thank him. No one at the table thanks Daddy or Mommy for working and bringing the food. So there's some things there that to me were silliness. And so I stepped back and I said to myself, how will I be different? Will I be mean? Will I be cruel? Will I be stupid? Will I be financially hurt? And I began to think, gee, changing that idea in my head doesn't change me a bit. Except, I don't need Jesus points. Christians need Jesus points. Muslims need Muslim points. Buddhists need Buddhist points. And everybody is trying not to die. They're scared to death to die. Atheists generally aren't. Everybody else thinks, maybe I could just get 2 more points today or 5 more points, and then when I'm gone, I'll have a mansion. You know, they mention mansions on the cross with the robber. And some people, gold roads and no pain, and I don't know, some say wings, some play harps. Every religion has the hope of some kind of craziness on the other side. And individual people, I think, have so low self-esteems and they're so needy that everything that happens, they have an excuse for. If they have a good thing happen to them, they'll go, oh, see? Jesus is watching over me. Jesus helped me with my homework. Jesus helped me graduate from school. Oh, I bought a good car. Jesus inspired me. Well, then what happens when the car blows up and suddenly your degree is recalled and everything goes crap in your life? Oh, I'm just being tested. God wants to see if I'll hold the faith. And Satan, he's a real person and he wants my soul. Well, you know what? My soul ain't worth crap. I don't know what yours is, and why Satan would want my soul or yours, I don't know. And this magical person, Satan, you know, it's the good cop, bad cop. To me, in my mind, Jesus and Satan. And the Mormons believe they're brothers. I mean, you know, there's some sibling rivalry here, to say the least. So this circular kind of Christian thought and religious thought, it's not just Christians, but everything good comes from Jesus and everything bad comes from the devil. Well, what influence do we play in that? I don't think a lot, but I do think there are statistical chances that we can improve our life. If we go to school, we'll probably have a better job. If we eat right, we might be more comfortable and have less disease and pains and aches. So I think we do have an influence to a certain extent to the quality of our life. But what do we get? A sickness, divorce, disease, you're born a midget, you're born a giant, you're born with no arms. We don't have any control of that. And to think that Jesus is punishing a baby that has no arms, I think is cruel. And I think it's abusive. And I think it's coming from very mean people, mean-spirited people. So, to me, there's a little discrimination. A lot of people go, well, gee, if you're an atheist, you must be a bad person. Well, we aren't. I don't smoke, I don't drink, I am true to my wife, I try to take care of my children, I try to be a decent human being, I vote, I keep my house clean, I buy life insurance, or car insurance, and I have a driver's license, I've never been arrested, and I've never been in juvenile courts. So, how does that become different when I go, you know, the Jesus thing I just don't go with. I just don't believe the Son of God and the virgin birth and all of the other paraphernalia that comes with that. I didn't change. In fact, in some ways I became better. Now I know the Christians are going to shake their head and go, oh God, I'm turning this off. That's okay. That's okay. No one has a gun to your head. I became better. Because now I'm not under the stress for Jesus points. I do things now good because I'm a good person. I think it's the right thing to do. When I see somebody that has to you know, walk in the snow and it's cold and I have a warm seat in my car and it's a little bit inconvenient but not that much and I can pick them up and take them to a destination, I think that's good for them and me. And I think it's good that I vote and that I become politically responsible in our community and country. I try to be a good neighbor and I babysit other people's kids when they need it. And I spend my money well. I don't buy, you know, men toys, guns, and a truck, and trips to Tahoe and hunting. That money goes basically to my children, their clothing, their food, their dental. And I go to PTA meetings with the kids, and I go to parent-teacher conferences. And, you know, I support my wife and take her places when she's off at work. And we try to have a good time. We go on vacation. We're just pretty normal people. So this fear, and that's one of the things that I don't like about religion, is that they foster fear. I'm not good enough. I'm not going to be with Jesus. I'm not going to be with my family. I'm not. And the truth is, they don't know and you don't know either, and I don't know. No one's ever come back from the dead and told us where we're going and what's going to happen to us. I've sat back now and just said, well, I need to be a good person. I need to be a solid person. I need to... I do believe in many of the Christian doctrines or philosophies of not murdering people and not lying and cheating and stealing, but the Christians think they invented that with Jesus. That's been around 3,000 years. Every religion, Buddhist and Hinduism and Muslims, all have those basic tenets of living properly with your associates on this earth. It's there. And atheists, at least I do, I'm not speaking for other atheists, I don't know what they believe, but I believe that those things are good things, and they cause society to be glued together and people to be kind and loyal and compassionate for other people. And so changing a religious philosophy to no religious philosophy, I don't find dangerous, I don't find intimidating. I find a little uncomfortable because there's a stigma attached with atheists that I don't think is fair, because I think we're as different as every Christian is. But whether we survive after this life, I don't know. Why do I care? I can't control it. All I can do is fantasize about it. All I can do is think about it. All I can do is worry about it. All I can do is wonder if I have enough Jesus points, and all I can do is feel bad and have low self-esteem. I don't care. If we die and we're dissolved, who can stop that? Who can stop that? If this is just an evolutionary trend and we disappear, hey, we disappear. If you die and Jesus is standing there and going, you know what, you were an atheist and I hate you. Well, you know, you're Jesus, you're supposed to love me no matter what. Come on. And if there's stratifications and different degrees of glory, like the Mormons say there are, and Catholics, heaven and hell and limbo, and every religion has these stratifications. Wherever I go, I'm going to be happy. I'm happy here. You do the best you can with what you got. And if I look up on the hill and look at all the rich people and go, gee, I wish I was them, I would do that there. But I don't. I make the best of what I have. I enjoy what I have. I've learned to live with what I have. And what I want, I have. And if you're the kind of person that basically you know, wants what everybody else has, and that you want to be bigger than life, then be a Christian. Be a Christian and become a priest. And then you can wear funny collars and stand in front of groups of people and feel important. An atheist, we don't have that need, and we're not afraid to die. Many of the Christians, they'll do impossible things to stay alive. Because they don't think they have enough points. They don't want to stay alive for any other reason. Well, that's an exaggeration. The main reason that they want to stay alive is they need a few more Jesus points. And they're not quite ready yet. Ready for what? I don't know. But the tally board, if Jesus is tallying, great. Atheists are doing good things, we're good people, and our tally sheet should look pretty good. And if we don't believe in him, you know, and he takes that offensively and is upset, then he's not a God. You know, if he's really a God, he'd be compassionate and understanding. But when I pray to the atheist God, and when I pray to Jesus, I get the exact same answers. You do too. You do too. It's just that I'm willing to stand back and go, gee, these are two invisible, silent people. They're silent. So why would I have to work for Jesus not to talk to me? If I can be an atheist, I don't need to talk to Jesus, right? So, that's the road I've come down, and it doesn't mean it's the end of the road. I could, wake up tomorrow and become a Muslim or back to Christian, or God only knows, back to a Mormon, but I don't think that's going to happen. I'm pretty content and pretty comfortable with the decisions I've come to, and I don't feel stressed. I don't feel intimidated. I don't feel low self-esteem, and I don't feel afraid. Fear. Fear God. Well, I don't fear God. What can He do? If He kills me and I dissolve, so what? If He kills me and then throws me in with the whole bunch of people with pitchforks and burning fires, I'll just start a business of air conditioning and maybe sell pitchforks, make a little money on the side. You make the best of whatever you have and wherever you go. So I don't live in fear anymore. I don't want to live in fear. And if you do, that's, hey, float your boat, go for it. But to me, it's the Titanic. And it's stress and heart disease and ulcers and, marriage problems and whatever. So that's my story. That's my road to atheism. And I just thought I'd share it with you. Thanks.